Hey everyone, this week we've got top 10 best looking games of the last generation. Have a look at the list and tell us what you liked or didn't like by jumping onto our Facebook page and letting us know, or you can join the conversation on Twitter. This one's more for the more artistically minded folks out there who really like to not just play a game for its gameplay, but also for the beautiful vistas and some of the beautiful graphics that can come along in these games. Have a look.
At number 10 is BioShock Infinite. The third game in the series takes us out of Rapture and into the floating city of Columbia. In BioShock Infinite, you see a quiet city in the clouds fall apart around you. The sky setting is relaxing and its brightly lit environments really show off the detail that has gone into each and every part of the game.
You don't get to draw it all.
At number 9 is Mirror's Edge. Mirror's Edge is a dystopian adventure set in a beautiful, bright, postmodern city. The cityscape is a great contrast to the story. On the surface, the city is clean and peaceful. However, underneath there is corruption, and behind all of it, an oppressive government. At number 8 is Gran Turismo 5. Racing simulators have always pushed the edge of technology to achieve realism in both the way the cars handle and look. Gran Turismo 5 pushes what the PlayStation 3 could produce to its limit with smoke physics and reflective surfaces. This is a game where HD TV is not recommended, it's essential. At number 7 is Halo 4. While not going for realism, the high quality science fiction models in Halo 4 make you feel like it is real.
Marking. Impact predicted 77.8 kilometers to north.
At number 6 is Street Fighter 4. This staple fighting game is fully rendered in 3D, but stylized to have a hand-drawn look which is reminiscent of previous 2D Street Fighter games. At number 5 is Crysis. Less of a game and more of a tech demo to show off Crytek's game engine CryEngine 2, Crysis at its highest settings would cause even the best gaming rigs at the time to struggle rendering its more than 85,000 shaders. It was only until recently that the game was used as a benchmark to show off the processing power of high-end PCs. At number 4 is Battlefield 4. While Battlefield 3 looked fantastic, its overuse of lens flare meant you couldn't appreciate just how good looking the game was. Battlefield 4 fixes that by toning down the lens flare so that it adds an aesthetic quality to the game and not a blinding distraction. At number 3 is Borderlands 1 and 2. I couldn't decide which of the Borderlands games I liked better for its cel-shaded style, so I picked both. The cartoonish quality in Borderlands' art style complements the sheer chaos the player causes all throughout both games quite nicely. At number 2 is Okami. Highly inspired by traditional Japanese watercolor and wood carving art. I love Japanese watercolor, in particular ones with vibrant scenes of nature, and Okami has that in spades. It's hard to believe the game was originally going to be rendered in photorealistic 3D. And the number 1 best looking game is The Last of Us. If you're looking for photorealism in games, look no further than The Last of Us. The character models are meticulously constructed and no detail, no matter how small, has been overlooked. I hope this gets remastered for the PlayStation 4 to take advantage of its larger hardware capabilities.
So that was top 10 best looking games of the last generation. I'm curious, guys, what you thought about including games on there that weren't sort of like your traditional high poly, high, super shiny, smoke physic rendered-ish games.
Yet Battlefield 4 still made it high on the list.
Yeah.
I think you could have went a lot further with that, because there's a lot of games that you miss that aren't as technical, but still look amazing, like Sword and Sorcery and like Bastion and that kind of stuff. And I really would have liked, you know, some of them. Papers, Please is a really simple game, but it looks really awesome. And I just feel like you could have maybe put a few more of them in. But I'm happy with Borderlands, and Street Fighter 4 does look amazing.
Street Fighter 4 is actually a really interesting one. Like I think I talked about this a little bit on the list, but it's fully rendered in 3D, right? But the reason why it's all sort of hand-drawn and stuff like that, or it's meant to look hand-drawn, is so that it's more reminiscent of the old games, so it gives it that nice little leap back in time to the good Street Fighter games.
So now we're going to go to Liz with the first part of the Harry Lee interview.
I'm here with Harry Lee, one of the co-creators of the indie game Soccer Bond. How are you?
Well, thanks. How are you, Liz?
Pretty good. So why don't you tell us a bit about Soccer Bond? It's a very interesting game, and it's a bit hard to sort of understand how intense it can be from the gameplay footage. So why don't you tell us a bit about what makes it different to other games?
Sure. So Soccer Bond is an elegantly designed puzzle game based on chemistry. And we wanted to really pare back a lot of the things that people think makes games great, like complicated visual graphics or really heavy-handed sound design. And as a result, through this reductive method of design, we sort of stripped it to a core of pure puzzle pleasure.
So it's like a case of less is more.
Absolutely, and I think that's been Wonderlands' philosophy, the developer that made it.
So coming back to before, you mentioned chemistry. What made you guys decide to use chemistry as the sort of basis behind the design of the game? Like, it's a very interesting sort of topic to broach in a video game, really.
Yeah, it's a bit slightly unusual because most video games tend to stray away from the sciences more into, the fantasy sort of realm. We were really inspired by the natural beauty of the physical sciences and the fact that geometrically they often come up with very elegant solutions. Nature has provided us with a whole bunch of inspiration. And so when you look at, for example, the ring arrangement of a benzene molecule, or just the fact that a hydrocarbon acts differently, its physical properties are different because its a molecular structure is a certain way, that to me speaks volumes about what we can learn from the world, what we can really take away from the smallest components, or one of the smallest components that we can see into. So Wonderlands made a game called Stickets previously, and Stickets is all about generative puzzles and fighting entropy in a way. It's really about you and a random number generator and figuring out how you can, eventually prevent the demise of the game state. Where Soccer Bond is much more dialogic in some ways. It's about us setting these very interesting scenarios that we found through playtesting, through putting things together, chucking them in, and then through tweaking, and then saying, this is our statement to the player. If you can solve this, then you have broached our mind. You have sort of peeked into our mental process and creation. And as a result, by solving it, you've had a conversation with the designers. And I really like that about handmade puzzle games. I think there's something beautiful about that. That's present in my earlier game, Impasse, as well as games such as English Country Tune.
Cool. So like, on that topic, the main thing about Soccer Bond is that you learn by discovering. How did you go about implementing that?
One of the things that we're really proud of is the structure of the game that requires no tutorials. You get in and you start learning these very basic concepts that are mechanically interesting, but they also have real-world links to chemistry. So when creating educational games, I think there are a lot of really not so great educational games out there. Whereas we didn't set out to make an educational game. Soccer Bond is based in the natural laws of chemistry, so when you figure out the rules of the game, you just so happen to pick up on the side the natural laws of chemistry. The fact that H prefers to covalently bond with only one other atom, whereas C prefers preferentially to bond with four. Or the fact that, H2O looks like that, not necessarily at that exact angle, but certainly it has a very reasonable structure, and that you can learn that reasonable structure and it's the structures of a whole bunch of other molecules like diazine or methanol through the playing of this game.
Excellent. That's I think it's such an interesting sort of approach to take to a game, because so many games now they make you sit through that first 2 or 3 levels which just show you how everything works, and then they throw you in head first, where I found that Soccer Bond was very eased in. You sort of learn as you went, and I thought that was very intuitive. Did you find that it came from did you take sort of other games as inspiration, like this is what we don't want to do and this is what we do want to do, or did you look outside of games into other media as well?
I think definitely a combination of the two. As game makers, we have to be well read in our medium, as well played as it were, playing a lot of different games, but also taking inspiration from other media is paramount. Really crucial for making an interesting and meaningful product. And the reason for that is simple. The greater your input, the more you can synthesize your ideas with antitheses and then create something that is new with your own voice. I've been exploring this concept of bringing people through a new system, a new rule set. And I found that the best way to teach people in the game is to just trust them and then also guide them without hand-holding. And in order to figure out how to do that, I went to other games, but actually went to film, making techniques, and poetry and architecture. And architecture turned out to be the most relevant discipline in some ways. I spoke about this kind of earlier, so there's a bit of a link there. When you're walking into a space that is specifically designed to be walked through or to be enjoyed from particular angles, the designers, the architects usually put subtle clues of your positioning to different structures, and the size and the scale and the materials used draw your attention to a certain place. Just like, I guess, a Valve game might use lighting in Portal to attract your attention to a particular place. But even, in a more basic level, the fact that games basically are about the exploration of space, it indicates to me that we can learn about how humans psychologically are influenced by our surroundings when it comes to games. And the same thing applied very much to Sokobond. How do we really, glean information from the initial arrangement or setup, and what do we expect people to do or players to do? And then we use that to surprise them or to take them on a journey or to not manipulate, but certainly guide them on an emotion that we want them to feel. So we highlight the experience that we want them to have.